Thank you all for coming out today to support this movement. It is not enough to just post on our stories that we are in solidarity. We have to show up to show solidarity. And I know that I do not want to be here. I should not have to be here. We should not have to be here. But when the laws of a country have upheld the routine murder of marginalized groups for its entire history, part of seeking justice for oppression is accountability. The officer who murdered George Floyd and the accomplices who let it happen have finally been held accountable. But the officer who killed Breonna Taylor still has not. She would have been 27 yesterday. Instead, her killer walks free. 2020 marks 5 years since the death of Sandra Bland and 1 year since the death of Layleen Extravaganza, both found unresponsive in their prison cells with no accountability from the criminal justice system. The cops have murdered Tony, Tamir, Philando, Tanisha, Eric, Stefan, Yvette, Ayana, a 7-year-old child. No accountability. There is no justice when property is put over humanity. No accountability for bad apples. The structure of American legislation is designed to protect those few bad apples, the good kids who made mistakes, the corporate buildings over the community. I myself find myself guilty as a mixed black child to have the privilege of not being forced from birth to understand the gravity of life in the police state, because I do not share the appearance of my brothers, my cousins, or my friends. But I have learned to understand this guilt, listen to the experiences of my family members and peers, educate myself. And from all of this comes the desire for justice in a system that is not built for black and brown people, because I am angry. It makes my blood boil that we reach this tipping point over and over, and still the racist system remains unchanged. I am livid that I have been subjected to hours and hours of uncensored video on the news and social media showing Derek Chauvin pressing the life out of George Floyd over and over, and then I am forced to question why it is always our murders who are televised so openly, so frequently. I am furious that protesters are being met with military-grade weapons and violent arrests, as if condemning oppression is a declaration of war against the United States. The system needs to be rebuilt. Community resources need to be prioritized over billion-dollar budgets for racist police departments, and we must demand that police be defunded to put those billions into those resources: schools, homeless shelters, public transportation, health centers. We must hold our peers accountable for their transgression and form real solidarity in order to dismantle the institutions of white supremacy. We have the power to demand this country's accountability for its desecration of Black lives and achieve justice. We cannot wait any longer. Thank you so much. Our next speaker is Isadora.
In our history, we have been worked and owned like animals. We have been given false freedoms and no protections from those who wish to do us harm. We've been shot dead in the streets that were paved over our flesh and bones and made enemies of the public. And it's agonizing to watch the news every day, because naively, I hold on to the hope that it's ignorance across this nation that could be solved if we just televised our pain. If we showed them how unjustifiable and inhumane this is, then they would understand and things would be different. So it may be childish, but it does hurt my soul for their hatred to be affirmed, because in my heart, I want to love every person breathing in this nation today. But I've been given the hope I need. After centuries upon centuries, we won't resign or surrender. We won't let ourselves be desensitized to our murders and injustices. Our blood still boils the same as it did, and we will fight back until we abolish this broken system, and then we will move on to the next. I want an equal and just society, and it cannot be composed of these same institutions that oppressed us. We will not be complicit in our own suffering.
Next up, we have Avi. Let's give her some noise.
Why do we live in a world where a black person can be killed in broad daylight? The everyday life of a black person, of us, watching people either scurry away in fear or call the police out of hostility is degrading, dehumanizing, and wears down on us every day. Police brutality today acts as an example of white supremacy. In instances of police brutality, those perpetrators dehumanize black people, reducing them to nothing but a threat instead of someone's parent or child or a musician or a scientist or a teacher or some other real human person. This example of racism is rooted, as much of racism is, in slavery. During that time, slave owners attempted to strip enslaved people of their humanity, branding them with the slave owners' initials and robbing them of the names of their ancestors. They did not want to see a person in front of them, they only wanted to see a tool for labor. But out of this, the enslaved people turned to music to assert their own humanity. Black people continued to play traditional African music, retaining their culture and using music as an active, peaceful protest. And through music, black people forged a unique culture, which influenced not only themselves, but the entirety of America. From work songs came spirituals and gospel music, and out of that came jazz and so many other forms of quintessential American music. The humanity of black people has so deeply influenced America, and without it, this country cannot exist. As James Baldwin said regarding America, no other people has ever been so deeply involved in the lives of black men and vice versa. So it is paramount to remember that Black Lives Matter, not only to black people, but to everyone in this country. And a poem by Langston Hughes that I found demonstrates this point beautifully is called Freedom's Plow. When a man starts out with nothing, when a man starts out with his hands, empty but clean, when a man starts to build a world, he starts first with himself, and the faith that is in his heart, the strength there, the will there to build. First in his heart is the dream, then the mind starts seeking a way. His eyes look out on the world, on the great wooded world, on the rich soil of the world, on the rivers of the world. The eyes see there are materials for building, see the difficulties too, and the obstacles. The mind seeks a way to overcome these obstacles. The hand seeks tools to cut the wood, to till the soil and harness the power of the waters. Then the hand seeks other hands to help, a community of hands to help. Thus the dream becomes not one man's dream alone, but a community dream. Not my dream alone, but our dream. Not my world alone, but your world and my world, belonging to all the hands who build. A long time ago, but not too long ago, ships came from across the sea, bringing the pilgrims and prayer makers, adventurers and booty seekers, free men and indentured servants, slave men and slave masters, all new to a new world, America. Without billowing sails, the galleons came, bringing men in dreams, women in dreams, in little bands together, heart reaching out to heart, hand reaching out to hand, they began to build our land. Some were free hands, seeking a greater freedom. Some were indentured hands, hoping to find their freedom. Some were slave hands, guarding in their hearts the seed of freedom. But the word was there always, freedom. Down into the earth went the plow, in the free hands and the slave hands. In indentured hands and adventurous hands, turning the rich soil went the plow in many hands. That planted and harvested the food that fed and the cotton that clothed America. Clanging against the trees went the axe into many hands that hewed and shaped the rooftops of America. Splash into the rivers and the seas went the boat hulls that moved and transported America. Crack went the whips that drove the horses across the plains of America. Free hands and slave hands, indentured hands and venturous hands, white hands and black hands, held the plow handles, axe handles, hammer handles, launched the boats and whipped the horses that fed and housed and moved America. Thus together through labor, all these hands made America. Labor. Out of labor came villages and the towns that grew cities. Labor. Out of labor came the rowboats and the sailboats and the steamboats. Came the wagons and the coaches, covered wagons, stage coaches. Out of labor came the factories, came the foundries, came the railroads, came the marts and the markets, shops and stores, came the mighty products molded, manufactured, sold in shops, piled in warehouses, shipped the wide world over. Out of labor, white hands and black hands, came the dream, the strength, the will, and the way to build America. Now it is me here and you there. Now it is Manhattan, Chicago, Seattle, New Orleans, Boston, and El Paso. Now it is the USA. A long time ago, but not too long ago, a man said, all men are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, among these life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. His name was Jefferson. There were slaves then, but in their hearts the slaves believed him too, and silently took for granted that what he said was also meant for them. It was a long time ago, but not so long ago, that Lincoln said, no man is good enough to govern another man without that other's consent. There were slaves then too, but in their hearts the slaves knew what he said must be meant for every human being, else it had no meaning for anyone. Then a man said, better to die free than to live slaves. He was a colored man who had been a slave, but had run away to freedom, and the slaves knew what Frederick Douglass said was true. With John Brown at Harper's Ferry, Negroes died. John Brown was hung. Before the Civil War, days were dark, and no one knew for sure when freedom would triumph, or if it would, thought some, but others knew it had to triumph. In those dark days of slavery, guarding in their hearts the seed of freedom, the slaves made up a song. Keep your hand on the plow, hold on. That song meant just what it said. Hold on, freedom will come. Keep your hand on the plow, hold on. Out of war it came, bloody and terrible, but it came. Some were there, as always, who doubted that the war would end right, that the slaves would be free, or that the Union would stand, but now we know how it all came out. Out of the darkest days for people and a nation, we know how it came out. There was a light when the battle clouds rolled away. There was a great wooded land, and men united as a nation. America is a dream. The poet says it was promises. The people say it is promises that will come true. The people do not always say things aloud, nor write them down on paper. The people often hold great thoughts in their deepest hearts, and sometimes only blunderingly express them, haltingly and stumblingly say them, and faultily put them into practice. The people do not always understand each other, but there is, somewhere there, always the trying to understand and the trying to say, you are a man, together we are building our land. America, land created in common, dream nourished in common. Keep your hand on the plow, hold on. If the house is not yet finished, don't be discouraged, builder. If the fight is not yet won, don't be weary, soldier. The plan and the pattern is here, woven from the beginning, into the warp and woof of America. All men are created equal. No man is good enough to govern another man without his consent. Better die free than to live slaves. Who said those things? Americans. Who owns those words? America. Who is America? You and me. We are America. To the enemy who would conquer us from without, we say no. To the enemy who would divide us from within, we say no. Freedom, brotherhood, democracy. To the enemies of all those great words, we say no. A long time ago, an enslaved people heading towards freedom made up a song. Keep your hand on the plow, hold on. The plow plowed a new furrow across the field of history. Into that furrow, the freedom seed was dropped. From that seed, a tree grew, is growing, will ever grow. That tree is for everybody, for all America, for all the world. May its branches spread and shelter grow until all races and all people know its shade. Keep your hand on the plow, hold on.
All right, next up we have Giselle.
Hi, all. Let me know if you can't hear me in the back, okay? Thanks for being here too. To be Black in America is many things, one of which is to be frustrated. I'm frustrated that in the middle of a global pandemic, I need to choose between my health and my safety as a Black person in America to be here. I'm frustrated that every day I see another Black name added to an already never-ending list. I'm frustrated it takes a viral video to incite action, because what about all the others we don't know about? What about their lives and their justice? I'm frustrated that the United States of America continuously exploits and takes advantage of our own Black communities. I'm frustrated by the lack of leadership in this country in the White House. I'm frustrated that Black mothers and fathers, siblings and children have lost their loved ones to a system designed to oppress the very people that built this country. In a country that supposedly values liberty and freedom for all its citizens, Black people remain oppressed since the very minute our ancestors were enslaved and stolen from their homeland. Black people are not yet free. George Floyd was not free. Breonna Taylor wasn't free. Emmett Till was not free. America was built on the pain and suffering of Black individuals. Black people have lent their lives, their culture, our livelihoods to a country that chooses to oppress us, that instead denies our humanity. We have lost too many people at the hands of a system and its institutions designed to impede the economic and social success of Black communities. We have lost people to a system that placed racist, trigger-happy individuals in a position of power and dominance, and I don't want to lose any more. How many lives is it going to take for this country to change? How many children, how many parents, how many siblings before America replaces the system? Because the system was never broken. It never worked to begin with. It took too long for this conversation to gain the momentum, the power it holds today. Police brutality is not a new problem. The Black Lives Movement is not a new conversation. The injustice in this country is as old as the country itself. But we have lost too many people for us to move on, to forget without demanding change and justice. So let them be the last. It's different this time because of us, because of you, both the people here today and the ones demanding change from within their own homes. So if you can, go vote. If you're 16, pre-register. It's different this time because of a youth that refuses to remain complacent. We are the next generation of leaders. Let's take our frustration, the anger we feel, and use it and demand change. We need to amplify Black voices, centralize their message. We need to support Black businesses, not just today or for the next week, but for years to come, and rebuild our Black communities. We need to improve access to healthcare within Black communities and eliminate the bias within the healthcare system. We need criminal justice reform. We need policies in place that hold police accountable for their actions. There is so much we need to do, and I look to you, but I also look to our local governments, San Francisco, Oakland, Berkeley, because they hold the power to actually implement these changes. And so after a month has passed, I hope the allies that remain active on social media today, that we keep that same energy, because oppression isn't a trend, but a day-to-day reality that we face. So understand that. To be Black in America should be to be proud and hopeful. I want to look into the eyes of a young Black child and see hope and see joy and not fear. When will America see us as equal citizens and not thugs, as our president calls us? The only weapon we supposedly carry is the color of our skin. America should not see us as a threat, but as the people, the humans, the souls, the change makers that we are. So let's celebrate and uplift Black America. Let's protect Black Americans. Let Black Lives Matter. Thank you.
Next up, we have Sydney.
Hello. I am the child of my mother and my grandmother and her mother before that. Greats and grands expansive. I am the child. Okay. I am the child of my mother and my grandmother and her mother before that. Greats and grands expansive. I am the child. Of licorice tight braids and magnolia trees, of collard greens on Christmas and starched dresses. I am the child, twice born, regurgitated by the same country who has consumed us for centuries, harvested our skin for its copper and cinnamon. I am the child of sun-beating brows and backs, of proud black shoes that marched their way to Washington, of scrabbling brown fingers that clawed their way up. I am the child, born to this world where hatred seeps from beneath the crack in the door, where the television cannot be turned off and life is kept to the tune of the ticking of the clock above your head. We have traded chains for system, slave labor through imprisonment. Tongues still taste the same pepper and bitter gas of 66 years ago, and I cannot distinguish if the blisters on my heels are from crossing Edmund Pettus or the steps of San Francisco City Hall. It is some sick form of deja vu that I cannot tell if the blood at the foot of the poplar is Emmett or Ahmaud or some unnamed, unfilmed boy seized by the beast who lies as he calls himself Justice. We are weathered by loss, indistinguishable in our sorrow that brims to rage that extinguishes hope. Fathers and sisters and the sweet tang of belief in something beyond gone. We've been thieved of our definitives. The tomorrows, next Tuesdays, June 10ths, whens and laters, all clawed away by the scaly hands of the star-spangled beast who has collected up centuries of our lives. I have been stolen promises to my sister, unable to replace her one days and some days and dreams with Friday and in a week and next year. I'm telling my brother when he drives off to a friend's house that I will see him tomorrow morning, but I cannot be certain that I will. And I've lost the night, the beauty of a highway drive without the worry of red and blue lights and a gun to my chin, morning jogs and walks to 7-Eleven for snacks, and grilling in my backyard. From the glinting teeth of the beast who smiles as we fall, I cannot recover the safety of my own home. From the pockets of my graduation gown has been plucked dandelion futures, soaring ambitions, settling instead onto brown shoulders the birthright weight. We must become Atlas at 12 or 16 or 25. We are so tired, but don't you know sleep is the cousin to death, and we are constantly on the precipice, repeating hand-me-down rules in the hope of another day or minute. Hands up, yes sir. Brown knees kiss concrete, and when we kneel, is it in prayer or because his gun is on your neck? The same gun on my father's and my grandfather's and his father before that. Same scene. Rite of passage. Like wishing your friends goodbye every time you see them because each one could be your last. Like that feeling that creeps over your shoulder to land in the pit of your stomach that someone is watching you. And will you be the next Instagram post named to the bottom of a hungry list? We have passed down pain like bedroom stories. Brown chorus of 100, 200, 400 years past, still speaking the same song. When will it end? Will I one day be able to kiss the little brown top of my child's head and sing to him a song of overcoming, of peace? Thank you.
Up next, we have Suhaira.
Hi guys. Okay. So can I just, is there any way to, okay, this works. Okay. That feeling of panic, of terror, of, hold on, I'm sorry. Okay, so the feeling of panic and terror, that's how I feel when we get pulled over by the police. There was one day when my mom and I were heading home, and my mom, she got stopped in traffic because her car just stopped out of nowhere, and the police had come, and I was freaking out in the back seat. You know, I was panicking sort of silently. But the thing is, I always got mad at myself, and I asked myself why I feel so paranoid all the time. And the truth is, I don't feel safe. And honestly, in this country, I will never feel safe. So because of that experience, it has shaped my mind into thinking that I could be next, into thinking that anybody could be next. So what happened to George Floyd, what happened to Breonna Taylor, what happened to Sandra Bland, like, it has shaped like the Black community's minds into thinking that they could be next. Black people are dying. And when we aren't dying, we are living in fear for ourselves and for our loved ones. Okay, when I first heard about George Floyd's murder, I couldn't sleep. I laid awake, like, scared, terrified, stressed, and I kept thinking about his family members and their heartbreak. And so, like, did y'all know that he had a daughter, like Gianna Floyd? She's 6 years old. She's gonna grow up without a father. A father whose life was taken because of the color of his skin, a father whose life was taken because of the simple fact that those police didn't think his life mattered. But his life does matter, okay? Like, send in the police force, send in the National Guard. People will not stop. We won't stop, and we will come back stronger because his life mattered. Like, so yeah, like, I'm paranoid all the time, and I can't fix that, you know? Like, I wish I could, but I can't stop how I feel. I can't stop thinking about what's happening in the world right now. And so my family, like, they were immigrants, so they traveled everywhere until they found Berkeley. Berkeley because it had the best schools, because it was so liberal. Berkeley because it was as safe as it could get. But they didn't know that growing up in Berkeley growing up in America is so much more different. Like, and oh God. And the truth is, like, we all have dreams, but, like, ours are limited. We all go to the same school. We all live in the same city, but we don't got the same opportunities. We all got voices, but ours aren't just heard for some reason. But when all of us stand up, when all of us speak and unite, we will win. We will get justice for George Floyd. We will get justice for Breonna Taylor. We will get justice for Sandra Bland. Because seeing this right now, seeing all of you, seeing protests in all 50 states and all around the world, it gives me hope that one day there will be equality and equity for the Black community. Thank you.
We got C-Rock up next.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ciroc Mikiel, and I first off want to say thank you all for coming out here by showing the police department that we have numbers and that we won't settle for anything less than pure justice. It means the world to me. And now from a local standpoint, no matter how liberal Berkeley is, we should know that systematic racism is everywhere. From redlining to voter suppression to gentrification, there are so many ways that African Americans are oppressed in our nation. But police brutality directly takes lives. We should make sure that no cop can be scared of someone's skin color. No cop should feel threatened by walk-ins. No cop should feel threatened by somebody cashing a check. We should make sure that everywhere that we have numbers and that we have people that are gonna stand by us no matter what. Most importantly, Black Lives Matter is not a trend. Although posts and stories are important, they are only good with continuous fighting for our part. One thing that really struck me hard in the video that we've probably all seen is how not just the cops didn't take Derek Chauvin's knee off of George Floyd, but there was nobody else helping them. I just want to let you guys all know that if you see anything happening in our community, make sure to not just record, but also step in and do your part. Also making sure to use your power to vote, not just in the presidential elections, but local ones as well. Reforming the police department to the district attorney to make sure that no cop feels like they can shoot somebody and get away with it. And lastly, I just want to say that we should be supporting Black businesses right now that have been struck hard by not just coronavirus, but anything that's been going on, whether it was looting or something else on those terms. Another thing that has been oppressing people is, of course, economic inequality. And by giving funds to those businesses, we're able to break that. Thank you.
We got one last speaker. Her name is Rabia. Give it up for Rabia.
Can you hear me okay? Okay. My name is Rabia Kabir, and I am here today because I am tired. I am tired of having to grow up in a world where hearing of another Black person murdered by police is trivial and needs no further discussion. I'm tired of the school-to-prison pipeline and the fact that Black people are incarcerated at a rate of more than 5 times the rate of whites. Why is this? And why do I get to feel grateful for my white passing privilege even though my father is Black? Because it means that I can go on a run and expect to come home in one piece. This is a country built on tears and hatred, and it's nothing to be proud of. I'm sick of this country, but I won't abandon it. We are here today because we demand justice. And I don't want to hear about the logistical complications of when justice can happen, because we need justice now, because people are dying, and if you're a fucking human being, you'll understand that. Police need to be re-educated. We need to recreate the legal system in this country. Our streets should not have to be a war zone. I want my father to be able to walk out of the house in the morning without a care in the world. So that's why I'm here today. That's why we're all here today. Because unlike half the people in this country, we refuse to lie down while our people are slaughtered in the streets. We will fight because we have to, and they will fall because they must. Thank you.
That concludes our speaker list. We are now going to make our way over to BPD across the street. I would first like to remind you that this will be peaceful and that we are not going to start anything that does not want to be started. So I'm going to make a request of the crowd. If we can stand up and make a path, we are going to be walking through you and crossing the street. I would also like to remind you that the first 9 minutes of this sit-in will be completely silent. Completely silent. So I would please like you to make an avenue for us to walk through, and then I would like you to follow us across the street. Thank you.
Where's your people?